A vida pode ser uma verdadeira aventura, quente, rápida.
Vagarosa ou triste.
Às vezes cheia de altos e baixos.
Mas, segundo os psiquiatras, qualquer parte da vida pode ser rotulada de doença mental.
A sério? Como por exemplo?
Digamos que você tem estado perturbado depois de uma separação. Bem, isso pode ser rotulado de depressão.
E se você estiver nervoso antes de falar em público, isso é?
Distúrbio de ansiedade.
Ou ser muito falador e superativo.
Maníaco.
Sou um pouco louco.
É verdade.
Mas quanto disto acontece realmente?
Vamos perguntar.
How many people do you know that have been diagnosed with a mental disorder?
Diagnosed with a mental, God, off the top of my head, maybe one person that I know who's been diagnosed with a mental disorder.
Probably just one.
So, yeah, maybe 2 or 3 people, maybe in the 3 or 4 range.
4 or 5, maybe 5.
6 people in the household.
6, 7.
10.
A dozen or so.
About 20.
How about 30?
Would definitely be in the hundreds for sure.
The total number of people that I know in my lifetime has been diagnosed with a mental disorder probably fall around the range of 100 to 150, and I'm 23 years old.
Ela! Mas de onde vêm esses distúrbios?
Do Manual de Diagnóstico e Estatístico de Doenças Mentais da Psiquiatria. São 943 páginas e cobrem tudo desde depressão, ansiedade e gaguejo, vício de cigarros, medo de aranhas, pesadelos, dificuldades com matemática e distúrbio de infância, todas reinterpretadas e falsamente rotuladas de doença mental.
Mas algumas pessoas têm problemas sérios na vida.
Certo, mas os psiquiatras reduzem isso a algo de mal, como o seu cérebro.
Então deixem-me entender isto. Os psiquiatras têm um livro de problemas de vida reinterpretados como distúrbios mentais?
Sim.
É lá, deve estar bem baseado na ciência.
Pensar-se-ia que sim, mas não está. Numa das suas recentes convenções, os psiquiatras admitiram-no. Ouça esta.
DSM is made up by committees of men who have political opinion, and women too, who have biases and political opinions. And so there isn't nearly as much science in DSM as there ought to be.
Like in the previous one, people had a meeting in the bathroom and they decided that something should be in there, and then they would go and propose it to the whole committee.
You have this kind of lumping together of several observations, and when you get enough of them in one tent, you got a diagnosis.
DSM system is not the real system of diagnosis.
A lot of the disorders that are in there haven't necessarily been rigorously validated.
It's just the best tool that we have available, but it is not perfect.
It's so useless that if you give me a patient and the DSM, I'll make at least 20 diagnoses on the same patient.
You have to take it with a grain of salt anyway.
It's actually getting more and more complicated.
We're left with diagnosing things on the basis of checklists and questionnaires, which leaves us sort of out of, as you said, the rest of medicine because we don't have a biological test.
Incrível.
A falta de ciência no DSM é de facto um segredo aberto. Eis o que alguns profissionais têm a dizer sobre isso.
The DSM is a sham. It's been described as a house of cards. Why? Because the diagnoses are theoretical. They're not based on scientific measurements.
It's sort of a shaky level built on another shaky level, built on another shaky level.
It is flimsy and that it is easily collapsible under the scrutiny of critical thinking.
If you just pull one little fragment of the reasoning aside and question it thoroughly, you'll find it doesn't stand up, and then that means that the whole organism collapses because you've got some wrong premises in there somewhere. In fact, they're all over the place.
It is indeed a house of cards because it's predicated on not a solid structure. It is built to create an apparently legitimate edifice, which results in a diagnosis. But any serious inquiry will show it to be illegitimate.
Moneymakers here, I tell you. With schizophrenia,
Mas se o DSM não é baseado em ciência, em que é baseado?
Começa com um simples desejo da psiquiatria e psicologia serem aceitos pela medicina.
We psychologists have always desperately wanted to be accepted as a real science, as a true science. Now, what the early psychologists did was they looked around and they saw what other scientists were doing and they decided to emulate them.
Modern approaches to classifying psychiatric disorders dates from the 19th century.
Nearly all the clinical concepts we have today originate from that time. Probably the most important of all was a chap called Emil Kraepelin, who worked first of all in Heidelberg and then in Munich.
Nunca ouvi falar dele.
Emil Kraepelin é bem conhecido como o pai da classificação psiquiátrica. Ele foi a primeira pessoa a classificar o que pensou ser doenças biológicas no cérebro. Havia demência precoce, que é agora chamada esquizofrenia, doença maníaco-depressiva e psicose paranoide. Ainda existem no DSM hoje.
É tudo? 3 distúrbios?
Sim, só 3. Mas o sistema de Kraepelin em breve tornou-se muito popular. Ouça isto.
Kraepelin's system caught on very quickly, not only in the German-speaking world, but also in the English-speaking world, in the United States and Britain. It caught on because up to that point, nobody had an agreed way of talking about patients.
So in the early 1950s, there was compiled Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Now, there are very few statistics in the book. Disorder is used essentially as a euphemism for illness. This is a book which catalogues mental illnesses for which no medical sign has ever been discovered.
Este panfleto primitivo tinha 130 páginas e listava 112 distúrbios mentais. Pequeno comparado com o atual DSM, mas muito maior do que qualquer coisa que Kraepelin visionou.
Por que tantos?
Porque ao definir mais e mais coisas como anormal, os psiquiatras podiam pôr as suas mãos numa grande soma de dinheiro do governo.
Definir a vida, o que queres dizer?
Bem, coisas como prender a respiração, morder as unhas, chupar no dedo, sonambulismo, pobre eficiência, até homossexualismo.
Isso é ridículo. Incluíram tudo isso só para ter pessoas para tratar?
E mais. Então, a segunda versão do DSM-2 apareceu em 1968 e expandiu-se para 178 distúrbios, de novo para agarrar mais dinheiro do seguro do governo. Para fazer isso internacionalmente, o DSM-2 foi especificamente escrito para alinhar com a Classificação Internacional de Doença, o ICD, um livro extensamente usado na Europa e em todo o mundo, que, além de diagnósticos psiquiátricos, lista doenças médicas reais.
Então, isso é como os distúrbios foram aceitos pela medicina principal.
Foi o começo, mas o DSM-2 ainda não era científico, já que foi pesadamente influenciado não por testes clínicos atuais, mas pelas teorias do psicólogo austríaco Sigmund Freud.
Deve ter existido uma grande quantidade de neuroses nesse livro, certo?
Sim, mas não havia absolutamente nenhum conhecimento do que os causava. Eles nem procuravam por uma causa.
Inclusion of the disorder in the classification does not require that there be knowledge about its etiology. So in other words, to make a diagnosis, you really don't need to bother with cause and effect. You don't need to know what causes the condition.
Espera lá, se o DSM não diz o que causa os distúrbios mentais, como é que os psiquiatras descobrem-nos?
A resposta poderá surpreendê-lo.
New diseases are being invented all the time, and I want to emphasize the word invented, because when it comes to psychiatry, mental illnesses are not discovered. They're invented.
The way the system works in terms of diagnosis is that every few years a group of psychiatrists and psychologists sit around in a room and vote on new diagnoses.
Isto é ciência? Não posso crer.
Não se preocupe, não é o único.
The diseases are voted on? What do you mean?
Did you say, are they voted into existence?
Or voted?
As in created.
Oh, man.
I think that's kind of ridiculous.
It's crazy that you would vote. I definitely don't agree.
I don't agree with it at all.
Mental disorders should be based on scientific research.
I have been led to believe that it's all based on medicine and science.
So I'm kind of shocked to find that out.
Eu também.
Há mais. Não só os distúrbios mentais são votados para inclusão no DSM, como também são votados para exclusão. Por exemplo, homossexualismo. Listado no DSM-1 e 2 como doença mental. Eis como o editor-chefe do DSM-3, Robert Spitzer, explicou.
I came up with a definition in 1973 that made it possible to argue that homosexuality was not a mental disorder.
On a vote, essentially, at a conference of the American Psychiatric Association, it was removed.
Now, did they discover that homosexuality was not a disease through scientific processes? No. It was included for political reasons, and it was removed for political reasons.
And the end result is a vote. It's a supposed democracy. So to call it science is a complete fabrication.
Então o DSM é de facto político, não científico.
Exato.
Pensei que os psiquiatras queriam ser vistos como médicos.
Tem razão. É por isso que fizeram o seu manual parecer muito mais científico.
O que não era. Então o que fizeram?
Eles decidiram que a próxima edição do DSM ia ser completamente diferente. Foi uma decisão que mudou a psiquiatria para sempre.
If you roll the clock forward to the 1970s in the United States, basically at that time psychiatry was in very poor shape for a number of reasons. First of all, it was held in very low regard by other members of the medical profession. So psychiatry was the sort of thing you did if you couldn't succeed in any other area of medicine.
And people such as Robert Spitzer in America made it very clear that the time had come essentially for psychiatrists, being doctors of medicine, to practice medicine. So if a psychiatrist was spending a lot of time dealing with people who were anxious, depressed, these dilemmas, these problems in living, now essentially had to be redefined. And they were redefined as medical conditions.
And their solution to this was to come up with a manual which defined psychiatric disorders more carefully. So, hence, we have DSM-3, which is the third edition, which was published in 1980.
Sob Spitzer, os psiquiatras que editaram o DSM-3 tiraram a psicologia freudiana e decretaram que dali em diante os diagnósticos da psiquiatria eram puramente biológicos.
Então finalmente tornaram-se científicos.
Não de todo. Na verdade, a disputa política sobre que distúrbios introduzir ou não no DSM-3 foi ainda mais ridícula. Eis o que um psiquiatra disse sobre isso.
They would squeeze into a room which was about half the size of this one. It was much too small. And Bob would raise a provocative question and people would shout out their opinions from all sides of the room. And whoever shouted loudest tended to be heard. My own impression is it was more like a tobacco auction than a sort of conference.
E eis o que outro membro do painel do DSM disse.
The low level of intellectual effort was shocking. Diagnoses were developed by majority vote on the level we would use to choose a restaurant. You feel like Italian, I feel like Chinese, so let's go to a cafeteria. Then it's typed into the computer. It may reflect on our naivete, but it was our belief that there would be an attempt to look at things scientifically.
Soa como se tivesse um manual diagnóstico que parecia mais científico, mas não tinha mais ciência do que antes.
Entretanto, o número de distúrbios mentais no DSM-3 aumentou até 259. Mas para vender a ideia que a psiquiatria era uma verdadeira ciência médica, eles tinham que tecê-la com teoria que soasse científica.
But with DSM-3 from 1980 on, there was the progressive medicalisation of psychiatry. And the notion of chemical imbalance was invented and essentially took hold.
Ela, químico o quê?
Teoria de desequilíbrio químico. Foi sugerida em 1965 para explicar como a depressão poderia ser causada por um desequilíbrio químico do cérebro.
Gostava de ouvir.
Joseph Schildkraut teorizou que como as drogas psiquiátricas alteram níveis de substâncias químicas, então a doença mental deve ser causada por demasiado ou poucas delas.
Não é retrógrado?
Realmente é. É como dizer que porque a aspirina para uma dor de cabeça, essa dor de cabeça é causada pela deficiência de aspirina.
Estou a ver o que quer dizer.
Mas foi convincente dar à psiquiatria e ao DSM-3 a aura superficial de ciência. Como Robert Spitzer disse.
Psychiatry felt now, gee, we're more scientific, we're part of medicine.
Então funcionou.
Sim, e desde então, os psiquiatras e a indústria farmacêutica promoveram esta teoria de desequilíbrio químico aos médicos e ao público.
If you're one of the millions of people who live with uncontrollable worry, anxiety, and several of these symptoms for 6 months or more, you could be suffering from generalized anxiety disorder, and a chemical imbalance could be to blame.
Pristiq is thought to work by affecting the levels of 2 chemicals in the brain.
It works to correct chemical imbalances in the brain, which may be related to symptoms of social anxiety disorder.
Cymbalta works on serotonin,
and norepinephrine.
Hundreds of thousands of patients have been prescribed Abilify. Ask your doctor.
Ask your doctor.
Talk to your doctor. Call your doctor.
Ask your doctor about Cymbalta.
Pristiq is a key in helping to treat my depression. Ask your doctor about Pristiq.
You come to my office, and I say to you, well, you describe what's going on in your life and your symptoms, and I say, well, it's clear to me that you've got a chemical imbalance, and we're going to write you a prescription for this. The truth of the matter is, there's no such thing as a chemical imbalance.
There's no test out there that they can depend on that tells you you have a chemical imbalance.
There's actually, in fact, dozens of studies showing that there isn't any measurable imbalance. So psychiatrists will explain to patients all the time, this is just like diabetes. In diabetes, you have low insulin, we have to readjust the insulin level. In depression, you have low serotonin, we have to readjust the serotonin level. But actually, we have already proven that there's nothing wrong with serotonin levels. It's completely a myth, disproven by our own evidence.
I had a psychiatrist. He said that, in his professional opinion, this child had ADHD, a chemical imbalance of the brain. And when he was questioned on the witness stand as an expert witness for the state, he was asked if they had done an MRI. He said no. He was questioned if they had done a CAT scan. He said no. He was asked if they had done any bodily fluid check known to medical science to prove that this child had a chemical imbalance of the brain. He says no. And when he was asked how he arrived at this ADHD diagnosis, a chemical imbalance of the brain, it came down to that he had counseled and observed this child for 2 hours, and half of the time was observing. How do you arrive at a diagnosis of a chemical imbalance of the brain by talking to a child and observing them for 2 hours? You don't, okay? It's pure guesswork.
Ela, isto é a sério?
Veja por si. Uma pessoa com uma câmara oculta foi a diferentes psiquiatras pedindo-lhes para ser testada quanto a uma doença mental.
Of any scientific test?
Not that I'm prepared to do this time.
So you getting that I have adjustment, or what is it?
Adjustment disorder with mixed emotional features. It just means situational stress.
Right,
it's a formal diagnosis.
But I'm saying, just where do you get that from?
I take you at face value.
In terms of diagnosis, there's no way that I can x-ray or project or allow.
So it's very hard to have anything to measure, because whatever's going wrong is happening in there, and we just can't go in and open up, somebody's skull and scoop something out to measure.
Right now, we don't have an X-ray or blood test. That doesn't mean that the diagnosis is not clear.
The diagnosis is for insurance, and I'm not really trying to think too much in terms of diagnosis. I don't really see that as my main job here, to make a diagnosis, except to give something to the insurance that's reasonably accurate.
But we don't even really know what's going wrong in the brain. So all the things that we found were found by accident.
Estou estupefacto. O diagnóstico psiquiátrico é baseado puramente em opinião individual.
Não importa o que façam, eles estão errados. A BBC da Grã-Bretanha mostrou um programa onde 10 voluntários, 5 considerados mentalmente doentes, foram observados por 3 peritos de saúde mental para determinar quem era quem.
Epa.
Veja isto.
We think that it's likely that you've had a history of bipolar disorder. Is that correct?
You're wrong.
Okay.
We've come to the conclusion that at some time you've been diagnosed with a mood disorder.
You're wrong.
We were wondering whether at some point in your life maybe that you had suffered from a significant psychiatric problem of some kind or other.
No.
Not at all?
You are wrong.
All right, okay.
3 wrong diagnoses in a row. After a whole week of observation, the panel have identified just 2 out of 5 disorders.
Lá se vai a ciência.
Ora bem.
Okay, time in.
And I got a pair of compulsive disorders here.
Como podem os psiquiatras dizer que se baseiam em evidência quando não têm nenhuma evidência?
Vai mais longe. Os psiquiatras não têm testes para provar o distúrbio mental que rotulam e nem conseguem definir o que é um distúrbio mental.
Não.
Eles até o dizem no DSM. Veja isto.
Although this manual provides a classification of mental disorders, it must be admitted that no definition adequately specifies precise boundaries for the concept of mental disorder. There you go.
Incrível.
Mas os psiquiatras não acabam aí. 14 anos depois do DSM-3, eles publicaram o DSM-4. E o seu editor-chefe foi mais rude sobre o termo distúrbio mental.
There is no definition of a mental disorder. It's bullshit. I mean, you just can't define it.
Então, mesmo admitindo que não podiam definir distúrbio mental, um termo que usaram no título do seu próprio manual, eles adicionaram mais distúrbios.
Muitos mais. 115 para ser exato, para um total de 374.
Isso é mais de 3 vezes o número de distúrbios listados no DSM-1.
E em apenas 40 anos. E este livro pesa quase 2 quilos.
É maior do que as páginas amarelas.
É um catálogo de doenças mentais. Com ele, 120 milhões de pessoas em todo o mundo foram diagnosticadas com uma doença mental.
É lá. Mas e as doenças de classificação internacional? Houve um aumento em distúrbios mentais aí também?
Sem dúvida. A secção de distúrbios mentais e comportamentais do ICD é quase equivalente ao DSM. O que acontece no DSM é espelhado ali.
Está bem. Até agora descobrimos que não há um teste para identificar ou confirmar um diagnóstico de distúrbio mental, não há uma prova para a teoria do desequilíbrio químico e eles nem sabem o que é um distúrbio mental.
E eles admitem-no, pelo menos uns aos outros. Aqui está um psiquiatra proeminente a falar numa recente convenção da APA.
You're sitting in your office, you see a depressed patient, you have no idea what's the matter with them. And I know all of you think you know the answer, but in terms of evidence, I don't know the answer and I don't think any of us really know.
Isso é espantoso.
No entanto, eles dar-vos um diagnóstico muito rapidamente. Este é o outro psiquiatra influente na mesma conferência.
Jim Burley at the Maudsley Hospital did a study once on how long it took people to make up their mind about the diagnosis after they entered a room. And it was about, how many, David? It was 2 seconds? It was a couple of minutes. It was very...
2 minutos?
Sim. É claro, até o presidente eleito da Associação Psiquiátrica Americana disse que o DSM é uma piada.
Well, what does D stand for? I used to think it is diagnostic, but over the last few years realized it is more like a dartboard.
Jogo de dardos? Os psiquiatras dizem isto aos seus pacientes?
Não. Os psiquiatras agem como se soubessem do que falam, enquanto mantêm o público no escuro.
I was sent to a psychiatrist who saw me again for maybe about 15 minutes, talked to me how I was doing at 7 years old, and I left with a prescription for Ritalin.
Probably within the first 15 minutes, he diagnosed me with having an anxiety disorder and put me on prescription medication.
The amount of time it took for the diagnosis was, I'd say, probably within 10 minutes I was diagnosed with anxiety, with depression, within 10 minutes of speaking to the psychiatrist, and I was put on those drugs immediately.
I received numerous different diagnoses from different doctors, and each one gave me a different drug.
I didn't have to undergo any tests. I didn't even have to sit there and I didn't have to ask any questions. It was just, that's what you've got, and this is the drug.
They really didn't talk to me. They were always talking and questioning my mother. It was all about getting the information from her and not from me.
It doesn't make sense to me. I researched it, I've done my research, and I still can't fully understand how you can diagnose somebody with a short attention span.
There was never an explanation. Nobody really knew what it was or why it was caused or how did you get it, why did anybody have it, and what could anybody do about it. Just here, have some medicine and go away.
And I was put on, a horse's dose of an antidepressant called Effexor, 450 milligrams a day. They say if you're on 300, you're comatose.
It wasn't always Ritalin. It went from Ritalin to like Wellbutrin to Concerta
to Adderall. I remember asking these doctors, is there any other way we can do this? Is there any other therapy? Is there something we can do that won't make me feel so badly, that won't give me all these side effects and just horrible sensations through my body 24 hours a day? Is there something else I can do that might be not having to do with medications? Doctor said, no. See, what you have is very complex. You have a chemical imbalance in your brain that the only thing that can correct it is medication.
Vê lá, muitos diagnósticos, mas tudo o que recebes são medicamentos.
Correto. Hoje, diagnóstico psiquiátrico significa realmente uma droga psiquiátrica.
The whole question then becomes, okay, if we apply these labels, what next? And the what next tends to be, you get a prescription. And the prescription is for a drug that doesn't work very well and is toxic.
It's like a 1-2 punch. The number one of the 1-2 punch is the diagnostic manual. You've got all these disorders to choose from. The two is the treatment. So you've got the diagnostic manual in place, you've got a machinery in place, and then you've got this treatment that is there for the taking.
For everything you can think of that might seem to be odd behavior, the psychiatry field has a name for it. And then for every name of every diagnosis you have, there's going to be pharmacology behind it, and they have a pill for it.
Let me fan it out and pick a card, and there you go. Here's your label, and there's the drug that we'll give you to go along with that label.
98%, maybe 99% of people will get a diagnosis that justifies the use of a medication and also a follow-up appointment. Because remember, the business of medicine, the business of psychiatry, is seeing patients. And the psychiatrist that tells a patient they don't have a problem and there's no medicine for that problem doesn't have a very busy practice.
And that's sort of the purpose of the DSM-345, to provide a diagnosis that can be given a drug for that patient.
It's a quick buck. You don't need to do a physical exam. You put it in the chart, it's done. Prescribe away. Lifetime patient. That's what the DSM is for.
Eles dizem que o DSM apenas está ali para justificar o tratamento da droga?
Eu sei que sim.
Então, se o tratamento primário da psiquiatria é drogar, haverá muitas drogas para receitar ali.
Sem dúvida. Sabia que mais de 600 milhões de receitas são escritas para medicamentação psiquiátrica todos os anos?
Epa! Mas e os pacientes que não querem drogas?
De facto, o DSM tem uma categoria para elas também.
It says V15.81, non-compliance with treatment. Now this category can be used when the focus of clinical attention is non-compliance with an important aspect of treatment for a mental disorder or a general medical condition. If you refuse treatment, then you probably are mentally ill, ipso facto, by that fact alone.
Então, se não fizer o que o psiquiatra diz, é um distúrbio mental?
É isso.
Isto é mesmo assustador. Então, por que eles não seguem o tratamento?
Porque as drogas que os psiquiatras receitam podem causar algumas reações físicas severas.
Quer dizer, efeitos secundários?
Bem, não exatamente.
Drugs really don't have side effects. Drugs only have effects, and we arbitrarily differentiate those effects of the drug that we like, and we say these are the effects of the drug. And those that we don't like, those are the side effects. It's akin to saying that a bomb that comes down on a building kills people and destroys the building, and the military general says, oh, killing of the people is really a side effect. No, you cannot separate out the destroying of the building and the killing of the people. And so these are not side effects, these are direct effects of the drug creating disaster.
People think antidepressants are going to make them happy, but it's not what they do. They numb them down, and then in themselves there's a withdrawal state from the antidepressants.
They just become like robots, some of them. They're not actually able to experience the whole variety and range of human feelings and emotions and work with them and express with them and share them with others. Because once you sort of put somebody on a heavy dose psychotic drug, I mean, you're just dehumanizing them.
These are very potent, very toxic medicines, cause on themselves diabetes, high cholesterol, cause what's called a metabolic syndrome, truncal obesity, premature hardening of the arteries.
They affect the heart and the lungs and the kidneys, and you never know exactly what to expect.
Most psychotropic drugs lead to massive weight gain. Some of them, like olanzapine, for example, can lead to weight gains of 25, 30, even 40 kilos in a year or two, and that is serious.
One of the side effects is it affects your sexual performance abilities.
In people who are on a lot of medication, they're just totally unable to detoxify through their liver, and then other functions of the body shut down one by one.
These drugs have on their labels may increase the risk of suicide and homicide in people who take them, just like a carton of cigarettes tests to say may be hazardous to your health.
And there's cases where many people who commit suicide or commit acts of violence are on these medications, which definitely has this type of side effect.
You look at the side effect profile is identical to what they're trying to treat, and in some cases worse, and especially in the instance of suicide, then you could see that it's an extremely treacherous area with very, very little actual science behind it.
Está a brincar? Estas são drogas perigosas.
Sim, e tem havido milhares, talvez mesmo milhões de vítimas que vieram à psiquiatria para receber ajuda, mas receberam drogas que as destruíram. Pessoas como Candace a tomar Zoloft por sentir-se nervosa antes dos testes. Steven cometeu suicídio 19 dias a tomar Prozac. Julie, a planear entrar na universidade, enforcou-se depois de 7 dias a tomar Zoloft. Matthew tinha 13 anos quando se enforcou. Matt, 21 anos, numa combinação de drogas psiquiátricas. Caitlin, em Zoloft e Trazodone. Beth, em Paxil devido a problemas de sono. Matt, depois de começar a tomar Lexapro. Charles, a tomar Clozaril. Caitlin, de 12 anos. Megan, Aaron...
Espera, isto é insano. Está a dizer-me que todas estas pessoas que se mataram têm estado a tomar drogas psiquiátricas?
Sim, cerca de 42 mil mortes num ano estiveram ligadas a drogas psiquiátricas, quer seja por homicídio ou suicídio.
São mais de 3 mil pessoas por mês. Eles devem tirar estas drogas do mercado.
Sem dúvida que sim, mas porque estas drogas são de longe o principal tratamento que os psiquiatras oferecem aos seus pacientes, eles menosprezam os riscos. E os seus pacientes pagam o preço.
When you get on the psychiatric drugs, you feel just like you don't really want to live anymore. Like just depressed all the time, and you feel sad.
You don't feel like you're in your own skin. It almost feels like you just want to come out of your skin all the time.
Get really bad headaches, I'd start shaking, I wouldn't sleep very well, I'd have nightmares.
I had started shaking really bad, and it was like uncontrollable, you know, and it's like, I don't understand why I shake so much.
It brought on the symptoms that I was trying to escape from, very severe.
I'd go through spells where I'd just be completely just dead. There would not be me there. I'd just be standing there and there would be nothing.
I think we all have emotions, happy, sad, you know, situational emotions in life, and it didn't allow me to experience them.
You don't experience tears, you don't experience a lot of laughter. It just makes life real flatline. I described to a friend of mine as like waking up in a manila folder and it's a cloudy day. Everything is boring, unmemorable, unspecial.
It changed me. It changed who I was. It changed the essence of my personality.
You know, it just started making me worse. And I got in such bad fights with my brother. I scratched his face up and, you know, stuff like that.
I started to experience suicidal ideations almost immediately. And I had never had any feeling like that before.
I remember when I was at home one day, I had taken my medication and I thought about killing myself, and I got really scared, so I ran to my brother and I told him, and he just held me and told me not to give up and to just keep trying.
And I actually thought that's maybe the one thing that I do have control over, that I could, you know, I could off myself, and I would be out of this roller coaster of an existence.
I have been raped. I have been coerced into doing things that I do not care to speak of. But just to put it in perspective, even having experienced that, the experiences in thoughts and loss of self that I had, being put on Prozac was the worst violation I have ever experienced.
Não tenho palavras. As pessoas nem sabem o que estas drogas fazem porque confiam no seu psiquiatra.
Não só isso. Estudos recentes mostraram que as drogas como antidepressivos não curam distúrbios melhor do que um placebo.
Então, para recapitular, não só o DSM oferece um rótulo para os psiquiatras, mas justificam as suas drogas poderosas que têm imensos efeitos secundários e nem sequer funcionam. Isto é mesmo baralhado.
Sem dúvida. E, no entanto, ainda se agarram à ideia que podem corrigir comportamento indesejado com substâncias químicas. Naturalmente que a psiquiatria atrai a indústria farmacêutica agora que podem vender drogas para cada distúrbio no DSM.
Eu conheço essas campanhas de marketing, estão em todo o lado?
Sim, mas se notar, eles também estão a vender os distúrbios. As companhias de drogas publicitam distúrbios do DSM na imprensa, na televisão e na internet, pedindo que fale com o seu médico. Eles põem os seus peritos em programas para falar sobre as últimas doenças mentais epidémicas. Eles põem artigos de jornais sobre elas e contratam psiquiatras para conduzir estudos e escrever ensaios para dar aos distúrbios um ar de ciência.
Porque se as pessoas pensam que têm o distúrbio, elas pedirão a droga.
Exatamente.
The pharmaceutical industry markets disorders. Because if you can market a disorder, then you've got something to sell your product to treat.
So people suddenly come to think of things they previously didn't regard as a disease state as a disease. Go to the doctor, see the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist then prescribes the drug that the drug companies have received FDA approval for. And everyone is happy except for the patient.
They're all working together, the psychiatrists, the pharmaceuticals, and one feeds the other. So again, job security for the pharmaceuticals and also job security for the psychiatrists.
E não são só as companhias de drogas que promovem estas doenças. Um psiquiatra, Joseph Biderman, criou e popularizou um distúrbio chamado bipolar pediátrico. Ele, de facto, disse que pode começar no momento em que a criança abre os olhos.
Bipolar? Mudanças de humor? Em crianças?
Infelizmente, sim. Em 9 anos, o Dr. Biderman expandiu 40 vezes o número de crianças rotuladas como bipolar. A maioria foi receitada com poderosos antipsicóticos destinados a doentes mentais mais sérios.
Não fazia a mínima ideia.
O psiquiatra editor do DSM-4 admitiu a responsabilidade do DSM em criar a moda bipolar infantil.
Well, we learned some very, very painful lessons in doing DSM-4. But inadvertently, I think we helped to trigger 3 false epidemics. One for the childhood diagnosis of bipolar disorder.
Demasiado tarde, não é?
Para muitas crianças, sim. E como os psiquiatras dizem que os distúrbios mentais como bipolar não podem ser curados, os psiquiatras e as companhias de drogas fazem clientes para toda a vida.
Assim, é uma parceria natural.
Sem dúvida. As companhias de drogas oferecem imenso dinheiro para pesquisa aos psiquiatras, que depois criam mais diagnósticos para tratar com drogas psiquiátricas.
Drug companies have become increasingly dependent on mental illness diagnoses in order to maintain their profit margins. And psychiatrists and increasingly clinical psychologists are more than happy to manufacture mental illness in order to make that happen. Hence, the increase in size of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
The strategy is how many people we can diagnose with a particular label that would be broad enough to include a ton of people in it. And the mentality behind that is the sale of the pharmaceutical drug, which eventually becomes the treatment.
These drug companies are making a lot of money, and they're spilling that money and sending that money to people that will help support their cause. So it's not a surprise at all that they have infiltrated so many of the committees within the DSM and so much of our own medical education.
Espera um minuto. As companhias de drogas infiltraram-se nos comitês de psiquiatras decidindo sobre que distúrbios incluir no próximo DSM?
No DSM-4, 56% dos membros do comitê tinham laços financeiros pessoais com as companhias farmacêuticas, a própria indústria que lucraria com as 115 doenças mentais acrescidas votadas.
Então é claro que se vê mais diagnósticos que serão tratados com drogas.
E muitos mais sintomas listados para cada um.
The whole world is being made crazy, really. We have these proliferation of categories which have become more and more encompassing, encroaching in ordinary everyday life.
There isn't a human being on the planet who doesn't have at some point, if not several points, in a day or a week, distress. It's part of being human. But to say that because you have this distress, that you now are diseased?
If you take a god man in India who wanders around with a shawl and meditates for 17 hours a day, drinks rainwater and engages in some kind of spiritual or religious discipline or practice where he might roll on the ground for 100 miles to a holy place, people there don't persecute those individuals. They accept them as people engaged in religious practices. But here, if you took those same individuals in India and you had them walk across a campus in America, they would immediately be arrested and put into a psychiatric facility because they're manifesting psychosis. This varies by culture.
What do we want to straitjacket everybody? Is everyone going to be the same? What about people that do have a little bit odd behavior? Is a little odd behavior bad or dangerous? It's just different.
You want this thing to cover, all manner of aberrant human behavior. So if you can cover every bit of it, then you're going to have the best chance possible to a billable unit of service.
E caso alguém não se encaixe nas suas categorias, há mais uma em que se pode encaixar.
Naturalmente.
This is number 301.9.
312.9. 292.9.
Bipolar disorder, not otherwise specified.
Gender identity disorder, not otherwise specified.
Disorder of infancy, childhood, or adolescence, not otherwise specified.
Not otherwise specified. What the hell does that say? They don't know.
It's kind of like a catch-all.
It's the garbage can for the leftovers.
There's even a box for people that don't fit in the other boxes.
To me, it's insane.
This is like rubbish to me.
This is scary to me.
This is hackery, quackery, dockery.
Isso é má ciência, se as suas categorias são tão fracas que precisam de uma categoria para apanhar todas as peças perdidas.
Sim, como o ADHD não especificado, distúrbio alimentar não especificado, distúrbio do humor não especificado.
You can always use the NOS, the not otherwise specified diagnosis, and that's a billable service.
Not otherwise specified means that you're sort of at sea to some extent on the exact diagnosis, meaning it doesn't fit into any of the categories you've established.
Unspecified mental disorder. You see, that's considered a disorder. Having nothing wrong with you is now a disorder. That's what this says. Can you believe it?
Não posso crer. Existe uma categoria chamada distúrbio mental não especificado? Como em não estamos a descrevê-lo para si, isso também é uma doença mental?
Fica ainda mais louco. De acordo com o DSM, também poderia ser diagnosticado com um distúrbio mental que nem sequer é listado.
Está a brincar.
Ouça esta.
These diagnostic criteria and the DSM-4 classification of mental disorders reflect a consensus of current formulations of evolving knowledge in our field. They do not encompass, however, all the conditions for which people may be treated or that may be appropriate topics for research efforts.
It's even in the language of the introduction, it's basically saying we're trying to have a diagnosis to cover all the bases of anything that somebody could come in complaining about, which is, again, entirely backwards from how medical diagnoses are come to.
Este DSM não é minimamente medicinal.
Não, é puro marketing.
God bless the insurance companies. You get these multiple personalities you can call insurance companies. That's boring. Insurance billing, that's the big money right there.
Algo ainda me intriga. Se o tratamento psiquiátrico é tão longo, caro e ineficaz...
Eu sei. Quem está disposto a dar essa quantidade de dinheiro para tratamento psiquiátrico que se arrasta por anos, muitas vezes durante uma vida, com resultados tão desprezíveis?
Exatamente. Quem paga tudo isto?
O governo e os seguros de saúde.
Exato, os seguros.
Na verdade, o lobby psiquiátrico farmacêutico foi muito eficaz em levar à aprovação de leis para forçar as seguradoras a providenciar saúde mental igual ao seguro médico.
A chamada paridade de saúde mental, certo?
Correto, mas economicamente isto tem sido uma catástrofe.
So there's nobody who walks into a psychiatrist's office that isn't going to go out with a label. He's got 374 choices or so based on the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual list of symptoms. So he's got to fit you into one of those categories in order to get paid.
The DSM really should be called, how to bill the insurance companies, how to get money from the insurance companies. It's a list of codes, and there's a number for everything, and that number goes on an insurance form, and then you get payment for it.
The DSM is completely built into the system now because you can't get reimbursed by an insurance company unless there's a DSM diagnosis.
A kid wets the bed, you can bill on that. They're going to have one called a skin picking disorder. You pick your skin, you can diagnose and bill on that. You can always find a diagnosis and you'll always be able to bill.
A psychiatrist or a psychologist can go through their book now and find a diagnosis code for just about anything. Everybody would fall into something that they could put a diagnosis on and fraud insurance companies.
Que fraude!
Tem razão. Todos os anos a indústria psiquiátrica usa o DSM para receber 100 mil milhões de dólares do governo e seguradoras privadas. E isso é só um país.
Agora estou a ver o quanto o DSM aumentou os custos do tratamento médico.
Eu sei. A média da conta de seguros dos psiquiatras é o dobro do tratamento médico geral.
E isso sobe o que se tem de pagar às seguradoras.
Certo. E desperdiça impostos também. O programa de seguros de saúde mental do Texas foi quase à falência por uma classe de drogas psiquiátricas muito caras, normalmente receitadas por distúrbio bipolar.
É lá, isso são muitas drogas.
Claro que são. E ainda por cima, dado que os diagnósticos do DSM são tão arbitrários, outro enorme e custoso problema é a fraude de seguros. Hospitais psiquiátricos privados foram apanhados a passarem-se por clínicas de emagrecimento para atrair pessoas.
Come with me.
Pagando a recrutadores $3 mil por cabeça para trazer pacientes segurados pelo governo.
How many more you got coming? A bunch.
E a manter os pacientes internados até a cobertura de seguros esgotar.
E tudo isso é por causa do dinheiro do seguro?
Sim. E assim que os pacientes estejam admitidos, pode-se buscar qualquer diagnóstico do DSM para justificar o tratamento. Veja esta filmagem oculta de alguém fazendo-se passar por funcionário de um manicômio.
I'll say patient display. That's how my opening is always a classic. Patient display. He's sort of, what do you think? You think he's,
I thought, I've interacted with him a lot, and I thought he's always appropriate. He's always...
But under behavior, what's some good words in here? He's not negative. He's sort of intrusive a little bit.
Not really.
He doesn't push limits anymore.
He's really acting intrusive.
He acts sort of anxious. Focus on the negative.
And why should we focus on the negative?
Because that's how they get paid. I mean, this is what they told me. I mean, you write what you want to write. I know I got to write for it. So I know what I have to write. You know what I mean? So that's why
Like, why do you have to write it?
So this place can get paid. It's a business thing. It's not like I'm lying, but I always pull the negative out. Like,
Trisha Fudge, did I tell you to?
What? The negative?
Pull the negative out.
You pull it out of it.
Isso não pode ser ético.
Não é. E isso é apenas o começo da fraude. Os psiquiatras também foram apanhados a cobrar as companhias de seguros por ouvir música, ver televisão ou jogar bingo, cobrar por serviços de despertar, bilhetes de teatro ou viagens, ou por dizer tratar de pessoas na prisão, em coma ou mesmo mortas.
Não.
Alguns psiquiatras foram presos por terem relações sexuais com os seus pacientes e chamarem a isso terapia.
Isso é repugnante.
Como um diretor de fraudes de seguros disse, a extensão da fraude é apenas limitada pela imaginação.
Não fazia a mínima ideia.
Poucas pessoas o sabem. A fraude da saúde mental custa às seguradoras e contribuintes 20 mil milhões de dólares todos os anos nos Estados Unidos.
Deveriam prender estes criminosos e deitar a chave fora.
It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the third edition.
Será que mencionei que a psiquiatria também tem sido muito bem sucedida em usar o DSM para infiltrar o nosso sistema de tribunais?
Os tribunais também?
Sim.
The clinical diagnosis of a DSM-4 mental disorder is not sufficient to establish the existence for legal purposes of a mental disorder. That's a very interesting point. Basically, what the authors are saying here is that the material in the DSM has no utility in the courtroom in deciding guilt or innocence. It should not be used in courtrooms as part of the legal process.
Espera lá. Mas o DSM não declara que não pode ser usado para estabelecer distúrbio mental num tribunal de lei?
Precisamente. E, no entanto, é usada toda a hora.
Sim, como a defesa por insanidade.
E por disputas de custódia, compromissos civis, regulação de testamentos.
Eu li sobre psiquiatras a aparecer em tribunal em laudos opostos do mesmo caso, ambos usando o DSM e aceitos pelo tribunal como testemunhas peritas.
There was no evidence, as far as I could see, for psychosis or delusions.
Because he's suffering from narcissistic personality disorder and a delusional disorder, grandiose.
Uma contradição total. Nem sempre foi assim.
In the beginning of the 20th century, a psychiatrist in a courtroom would be laughed out of the courtroom by and large. Today, it's commonly accepted testimony as long as it's in accord with the DSM.
The danger in using the DSM in a court setting is that you're using a vocabulary that the judge or the jury doesn't fully understand. They are, by concocting these psychobabble words, it makes it seem like there's something there that may not be there.
The courts have allowed all this junk science to come into the courts, and they've made case law on it. And once the case law is made, we're stuck with it until it gets overridden.
They come in with tests, they come in with their diagnostic categories from the DSM, and they say, we've done tests, we've determined that this person has this numbered malady, and therefore they do. And there's almost no way to pry a judge out of accepting that.
When a psychiatrist makes a diagnosis in court, is that the person is sent to a mental institution, deprived of liberty, and we have no idea whether he's guilty or not.
Alguém é involuntariamente internado numa instituição psiquiátrica a cada 40 segundos, com base nos diagnósticos do DSM.
Isso está tão errado.
E qualquer pessoa, em qualquer altura, pode perder tudo devido à opinião de um psiquiatra. Ouça isto.
I went to a stop smoking course at Vanderbilt. And the doctor, the lady that ran the program said that she goes, we need to get you on a stop smoking medication. So she prescribed me Zyban. Well, after the fact, I find out that Zyban is nothing but this really powerful antidepressant called Wellbutrin. Yeah, I stopped smoking, but I had no idea the hell. I mean, the hell. The hell's gates were being opened when I started taking Zyban. I had been clean and sober for 18 years. You know, just never considered that. But something about that, I started experiencing the craving to drink again, and my life fell apart. Divorce, relapse. So then a sibling of mine got wind of my relapse, wanted to gain control of my pocketbook and my life, and found the dirtiest lawyer in town who knew, one of the dirty psychiatrists, and bought and paid for an evaluation, had a hearing in a court before I was ever served notice. And the next thing I know, every right that a human being can possibly have was taken from me. And you have less rights as a conserved person than you do as a criminal. I mean, you are stripped of every right. You can't enter into a contract. You cannot marry. You cannot sue. You cannot even fight the legal system that has involuntarily put you in this. And it was all based on the psychiatrist's diagnosis, who never evaluated me.
É inacreditável. Ele estava a tentar parar de fumar, mas em vez disso arranjou um diagnóstico psiquiátrico e os seus direitos foram-lhe retirados.
Todo o seu dinheiro foi-se e ele foi encarcerado numa instituição mental. Mas se o que os psiquiatras fazem no sistema de tribunais é mau, espere para ver o que acontece a famílias.
Children are taken away from parents every day in these juvenile courts because a person with a PhD or an MD after their name comes in and says, I've shown ink blots to a person, and they may be a risk to a child. Just in my little state of Massachusetts here, there are 11,000 children in captivity taken away from families at any one moment. And almost all of those children are being drugged. And our own commissioner of children and families testified under oath that they drug 88% of the children that they take out of the families.
88% drogados? É quase uma coisa certa.
E essa é apenas a ponta do iceberg. Em todo o mundo, os psiquiatras estão a usar o tribunal de várias maneiras para tirar os direitos das pessoas e destruir famílias. Ora veja.
Psychiatry has affected my family through the family law court rulings. The family law court has a court-appointed child psychiatrist who, it appears, determines the future of the child.
It's just like a business in the court system that they forced you to undergo all of these psychological evaluations, and you have to pay thousands of dollars, but at the end of the day, it has been supported by no evidence, nothing.
They'd said to me, Deb, you have a choice. Either you bring your son to get medicated, or we'll take your child away from you and put him in a home that they'll medicate your child. And then good luck. Basically, they were saying, good luck, Deb, to try and get your son back, but you'll get him back medicated anyways.
And they put her in hospital, and that's when the psychotropic drugging started with Becky. And at that stage, I had no say over it.
They refused to let her go. They would not let my daughter go unless she take medication.
This was again a recommendation from the psychiatrist that once my son was radically ripped from his home and literally kidnapped and put in a new home with a perpetrator of domestic violence and of sexual assault, and is where he now lives, this psychiatrist said that he was never to have any counselling and never to see anybody.
To have your family just disrupted like that, ripped out from under you, really, your whole life, just gone like that. And then you have to fight every day to get him back. It was very devastating.
In some ways, it's worse than a death because it's unresolved and you know what the truth is. And you feel like giving up and not fighting back for that custody of that child, but you can't. Yeah, there's just no justice.
Isto é horrível. Eles estão a despedaçar famílias baseando-se em diagnósticos arbitrários nos tribunais?
Exatamente.
So it's unfortunate that the courts have bought into the DSM. It's unfortunate that the whole psychiatric profession is wedded to the DSM. It's unfortunate that the psychiatric profession is in bed with the drug industry, and it's unfortunate that drugs that don't work are the common prescribed drugs for all manner of conditions in children and in adults. It's the wrong way to go.
Oh, não, eles não.
Infelizmente, sim. As crianças são um enorme mercado para a psiquiatria. O número de distúrbios infantis no DSM aumentou desde 3 distúrbios em 1952 para 44 hoje em dia.
Isso são 15 vezes mais.
E, no entanto, o DSM admite basicamente que não deveria diagnosticar crianças.
In early childhood, it may be difficult to distinguish symptoms of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder from age-appropriate behaviors in active children, such as running around or being noisy. We basically don't know the diagnosis from normal childhood. That's what that's saying.
Distúrbio de hiperatividade com déficit de atenção. É isso que os psiquiatras atribuem às crianças que não se sentam quietas na classe, contorcem-se, correm ou trepam muito. Basicamente um comportamento infantil, certo?
Certo, e 20 milhões de crianças foram diagnosticadas com algum distúrbio mental.
Então, em vez de deixar as crianças serem crianças...
Os psiquiatras estão agora a dizer aos pais que os seus filhos são mentalmente doentes e precisam de drogas psiquiátricas.
It used to be that you were on the playground, you had the weird kid, you had the shy kid, you had the goof off, you had the hyper kid. You can't have that anymore. Now it's all medical diagnoses.
For them to come up with new diseases and new issues and diagnoses in their book, it doesn't correct bad behavior, okay? They can give children all the pills they want. It still doesn't correct bad behavior.
The thinking still is, you must fit into this mold. And if you don't fit into this mold, there's something wrong with you. And if you're not the person who designs the mold, too bad for you.
A child is labeled and then they're brought to professionals who are trained a very particular way. They're all being trained that if the child fits into this category, then we should consider putting them on Ritalin because that's what they do. That is the protocol.
The way the Ritalin will be marketed to the parents is that they will say, this is a drug to calm your child down. What they won't say is that methylphenidate is a form of speed. It's a form of amphetamine, and what we're actually doing is overdosing your child on speed.
It's a stimulant. So naturally it's going to increase heart rate, increase blood pressure, and you put a kid out on a football field on a hot summer day, and his risk of having a cardiac event of some sort has just gone up.
Ouvi dizer que os estimulantes dados a crianças diagnosticadas com problemas de atenção são quimicamente muito semelhantes à cocaína.
Sim, e eles têm um alto potencial para abuso. Estão listados pelo governo dos Estados Unidos na mesma categoria da morfina, ópio e metanfetamina.
Então quem é que os psiquiatras vão drogar a seguir? Bebés?
Exatamente. Eles estão a usar o que chamam de diagnóstico de classificação 0 a 3 ou DC-03. É um mini DSM para bebés e crianças de 1 a 3 anos. Ouça esta.
We already targeted our school children with ADHD and bipolar. That's already done. That was done 20 years ago. And we're moving younger with DC-03 to the 0 to 3 age group where they're trying to make popular the idea that it's okay to medicate 0 to 3-year-olds.
The idea of a program to determine whether a child from birth to the age of 3 has a mental illness is so preposterous, so absolutely insane, that it's simply an additional part of the insanity that is now extant throughout this country. I cannot think of a program that is more insane than that.
How are they going to diagnose a 1-year-old or an infant with a psychological disorder? How do they know?
You almost have to ask ourselves, if our societies become sick, what are we doing to our fetuses, our infants, our children, that would make us need to have psychiatric medications?
We're rolling dice with life. We're rolling dice with our children who can't even discuss it with anybody. They have no control. They are the helpless victims, and the ones who are supposed to protect them and care aren't armed with the facts.
Se os pais soubessem tudo isso, eles estariam furiosos.
Pode crer que estariam, mas cuidado, porque o DSM também diz que pode apanhar uma doença psiquiátrica do seu filho.
Deve estar a brincar.
Está está no DSM.
We're going to talk about some of the proposed changes that are suggested for DSM-5.
Ouvi dizer que o DSM-5 é ainda mais louco do que o DSM-4.
E ouviu bem.
You've got 374 named diagnoses in DSM. Well, guess what? There's going to be more in DSM-5.
Why do we all of a sudden need a fifth DSM-5? Psychiatry wanted to broaden the horizons of mental health problems, of disorders. They wanted to stretch the disorders so it would encompass more. And to do that, you know, they're going to add more diagnoses.
We need more diagnoses like we need a hole in the head, really. They're not serving a purpose for mankind, all these diagnoses. They're almost laughable, some of the diagnoses.
Risíveis? A sério?
Bem, eles estão a falar sobre distúrbio de armazenar para pessoas que não deitam coisas fora.
Persistent difficulty discarding or parting with personal possessions.
Distúrbio alimentar para pessoas que comem frequentemente.
Recurrent episodes of binge eating.
E existe o distúrbio de coçar a pele.
So it's recurrent skin picking resulting in skin lesions.
Isso é um distúrbio mental?
E para as crianças, existe um novo distúrbio que irá abarcar ainda mais crianças cujas birras ainda não são consideradas bipolares.
They've created temper dysregulation disorder to seem a little bit more mild of the condition and include a lot of the younger population in terms of that diagnosis. And what it essentially does, it just broadens bipolar disorder into a whole other new category. And where they don't fit into bipolar, now they can fit into this other diagnosing criteria.
Então a rede está a ficar cada vez maior.
Maior do que imagina. Até estão a considerar adicionar um rótulo para pessoas que passam muito tempo no computador.
Internet addiction diagnosis. You know, it's another example of, just taking something going on in the popular culture that's, pretty widespread, and then finding a way to pathologize it.
I know people personally that spend 12, 13, 14 hours a day on the internet or social networking groups like Facebook. So there is something going on there. But is it a condition that we need to then label and drug? Absolutely not.
Isso é risível.
Sim, até que considere que na China o governo já estabeleceu clínicas psiquiátricas para tratar adolescentes por, cito, uso problemático de computador, às vezes a usar choque elétrico para curá-los.
Não.
E se pensa que isso é mau, existe mais uma inclusão proposta no próximo DSM que é verdadeiramente arrepiante.
Fica pior.
Este leva ao diagnóstico de doença mental um passo mais adiante. Síndrome de risco de psicose. Mais recentemente com um título complicado de Síndrome de sintomas psicóticos atenuados.
Mas que palavrão! E o que significa?
A really scary thing that's coming on the horizon is to come up with a whole bunch of diagnoses in there that are looking at people who currently are mentally well-adjusted but have a risk of developing a mental illness in the future.
They're still thinking they can define well before the symptoms develop the risk of a person developing a major mental disorder without any biochemical, biological or genetic test or any physical test whatsoever.
They don't know the cause of a mental illness. They can't treat it, they can't cure it. So how can they launch a preventative campaign for mental illness? It just logically, it falters.
Espera um momento. Os psiquiatras pensam realmente que podem predizer distúrbio algures no futuro?
Vamos ouvi-los.
How can psychiatrists know if you're going to have a mental disorder in the future?
Again, that we don't know categorically who will develop psychiatric illness in the future.
It's really hard to say, actually. I don't know if you could 100% predict for anybody.
You can't forecast if one will develop a psychiatric disorder.
Maybe not, or maybe yes.
It's hard to predict.
It's hard to predict.
There's no way to predict that.
Well, I don't think that nobody knows that.
There's no way to tell.
Nobody knows?
I don't think anyone can know what's going to happen in the future.
Eles não têm, obviamente, nenhuma pista.
Sim, mas apesar disto, já estão a propor fazer questionários às crianças para futuras doenças mentais.
Para que os possam tratar agora?
Exato.
I would hate to see us go into the type of society where people are
locked up for what they may do in the future, rather than what they actually have done.
Identifying people who are pre-psychotic would be a huge industry.
É lá, isso é verdadeiramente aterrador.
E a parte mais louca disso, os psiquiatras ainda estão a avançar para o DSM-5, quando alguns dos seus mais influentes admitem que é completamente inútil.
Any comment on DSM-5? It's of no use to us in the rest of the world.
Mesmo o psiquiatra encarregue do Instituto Nacional de Saúde Mental não está entusiasmado sobre isso.
I don't do DSM. I'm not involved. So, and that maybe tells you more than anything. NIMH is not involved with DSM.
Então, o tipo principal na maior organização psiquiátrica do governo do mundo não quer ter nada a ver com o DSM.
É assim que parece. É uma farsa total.
The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual is effectively the story that is being wrapped up in statistics and numbers and categories. That when medicine tosses, doesn't fit any of our categories over to psychiatry, psychiatry says we'll find a category, and if we don't, DSM-5 or 6 or 7 will.
I think in 2016 we'll be looking at DSM-6 and there will be 1,425 diagnoses and I'll have 900 of them.
Isso é de loucos.
Sim, mas tudo isso está concebido para encaixar mais pessoas sob o diagnóstico da psiquiatria.
Para que possam cobrar até mais comportamento normal.
Ora, aí tem.
Então, se o DSM é tão desnecessário, por que é que os psiquiatras... Oh, já entendi. É tudo uma questão de dinheiro, não é?
Com a psiquiatria é sempre uma questão de dinheiro. E começa tudo com o DSM, como Robert Spitzer disse.
The American Psychiatric Association found out it could make a lot of money by selling it. They've made a tremendous amount of money.
Every time they revise the DSM system, the American Psychiatric Association makes a hell of a lot of money.
Muito dinheiro? De quanto estamos a falar?
De 6,5 milhões de dólares de vendas por ano.
É lá.
Mas não é só vendendo o DSM que fazem lucro. Os psiquiatras e as companhias de drogas fazem dinheiro sempre que o usam para diagnosticar alguém.
You create disorders so that you can treat it with a drug. It's the ultimate money-making machine.
How many people can we drug? How many labels can we put out there? How many people can we herd into these labels and feed them a drug so we can get richer, make more money?
There's an inherent conflict of interest, and that conflict of interest is driven by the desire to make money. More money, more money, more money than one should expect.
Huge money in the psychopharm business. If you really did the research on these diagnoses, see that 90% of them or more don't exist, they're not valid, then that's all of a sudden, all that reimbursement from insurance companies disappears.
So we have to cut the money cord, as well as cutting the DSM cord if we're ever going to really succeed stopping this juggernaut from continuing.
Once again, it's follow the money. And you'll get your answer every time.
Isto tem sido um abrir de olhos. Vejamos, não existem testes de laboratório para um distúrbio mental que os psiquiatras nem conseguem descrever no seu próprio manual. A teoria do desequilíbrio químico é totalmente fictícia e, no entanto, as drogas que dizem equilibrar o cérebro são receitadas a pessoas de todas as idades.
Sim, com 84 mil milhões de dólares por ano, com um aumento de 10 mil milhões de dólares de prémios de saúde só nos Estados Unidos.
E estamos a pagar por tudo isso através de impostos de governo e faturas mais altas de seguros.
É verdade. Toda a indústria psiquiátrica usa o DSM para fazer 330 mil milhões de dólares por ano.
É quase 1/3 de $1 bilhão.
E está a crescer. Está fora de controle.
Well, the whole system is now a runaway train, but the DSM is the locomotive. And if you took the locomotive off, eventually the train would stop, because there'd be nothing more pulling it.
We're losing the concept of health. Everybody is sick and everybody's got a condition and everybody needs drugs.
You're going to end up with a whole society that's going to basically have to be led around by the hand. But who's going to lead them around? Because they're drugging so many of them.
In psychiatry, you know in your heart of hearts that you're not really diagnosing. You know in your heart of hearts that you can't really treat what you think might be wrong. And you also know that most of what you're dealing with in the DSM is unprovable and unreliable, not a predictable indicator. So what do you have then?
Boa pergunta. Nada, diria eu.
E as pessoas estão a magoar-se.
Sim.
You're very lucky to go through psychiatry and survive. It really is as simple as that.
Only when enough people rip the veneer away and show that it's just nothing more than a Hollywood set is it ever going to fall down.
It would be good if all the medical professionals who are really practicing medicine and really trying to help people and based on scientific fact and what they can best do to improve the lives of others, if they would recognize, just be able to look at this fact. It's hard to look at it, but look at this fact and be ethical and be honest and clean up the profession by getting rid of this fraudulent part of it. Psychiatry.
Muito bem dito. É tão óbvio. Temos de nos ver livres do DSM. É terrível para a sociedade.
Eu sei. Apesar da sua fundação incrivelmente frágil, o Manual de Diagnóstico e Estatístico teve um grande impacto no nosso mundo.
Nas nossas escolas, nos nossos governos...
Nos nossos tribunais...
E nos média militares.
Eles também.
Basicamente em toda a nossa sociedade.
E tudo isto sem uma única pessoa curada.
O DSM é realmente mais do que um castelo de cartas.
O Manual de Diagnóstico e Estatístico é a farsa mais mortífera da psiquiatria.